a daily basis, all without the use of radar, the Shanwick Oceanic Control Area is a busy and complex piece of airspace. In a combined NATS Prestwick Centre and SBA Safety Improvement Initiative, this DVD has been created with a team of experienced oceanic controllers and supervisors, HF radio operators, ATC supporting agencies and airlines. The aim is to show the issues that affect Shanwick airspace, to assist pilots that operate within the airspace, and ultimately to improve upon our already high standards of safety and service. The DVD will focus on a number of key areas, and for ease of reference has been divided into a series of chapters. We'll take an overview of the Shanwick operation and look specifically at control of a standard westbound flight. We detail the southeast corner of Shanwick airspace and some unique problems it can cause. We look at how things can go wrong and what the implications are if they do. And we look separately at aircraft facing emergency and contingency situations. Finally, we offer conclusions and guidance. We hope that you enjoy this DVD. As we better understand each other's methods of operation, along with the risks and limitations of our respective tasks, it becomes easier for pilots and ATC to work in a complementary manner, an action of mutual benefit to all. The Class A Shanwick Oceanic Control Area, or OCA, is an ATC environment with no surveillance radar capability. CPDLC and ACARS data link communication is sent and received directly between controllers and the flight deck, and HF radio remains the primary means of voice communication. For those flights suitably equipped, ADS position report information obtained directly from the onboard flight management systems is received automatically at a controller's workstation. Flights which aren't ADS equipped will pass such information by HF voice communications. The Gander, Reykjavik and Santa Maria OCAs, where flights are similarly controlled, mainly without the use of radar and also using data link and HF voice communications, share boundaries with the Shanwick OCA. The Scottish, Shannon, London, Brest and Madrid flight information regions also bound Shanwick's airspace. Flights within these FIRs are controlled via domestic area control agencies under radar surveillance and use VHF voice communications. Parts of the Shanwick OCA are delegated to Shannon as the Shannon Oceanic Transition Area and the Northern Oceanic Transition Area, and to Brest as the Brest Oceanic Transition Area. These transition areas are provided with full radar surveillance from the delegated ATC agencies. Shanwick's controllers and ATC support staff operate from the Prestwick Air Traffic Control Centre, located on the west coast of Scotland. Shanwick share an operations room with Scottish domestic and Scottish military controllers.
November 254 Sierra Delta, I don't have a flight plan for you. What's your oceanic entry point?
Oceanic entry point is Dogal.
Your estimate for Dogal, your requested flight level and Mach number.
Estimate for Dogal is 1223, Mach decimal 80, flight level 400.
Oceanic ATC clearances requested and received via VHF are relayed between flight crew and Shanwick planning controllers through a small team of qualified support staff known as Clearance Delivery Officers, or CDOs. The CDOs work alongside the Shanwick controllers in the Prestwick Centre Ops Room.
Copy, stand by.
Shanwick, Candidate 79, position.
Candidate 79, Shanwick. Can you go ahead your 20 west position report, please?
Candidate 79, position 56 north, 020 west at 1550, flight level 350. Estimating 57 north, 030 west at 1644.
It's important to note that all HF communication is relayed through separate HF radio stations staffed by HF radio operators. The main HF radio station used by Shanwick, using the call sign Shanwick Radio, is located in Ballygreen, near Shannon in Western Island. Ballygreen also has a VHF clearance delivery and frequency assignment capability. Shanwick Oceanic controllers do not use the same equipment as their Scottish domestic and military colleagues. As Shanwick cannot see the progress of a flight using radar, controllers rely entirely on all flights complying with their Oceanic ATC clearance. Aircraft must have the necessary equipment to enter Oceanic airspace. A full list of requirements is available, detailed in relevant state AIPs and the ICAO MNPS Doc 007. But essentially, before entering the Shanwick OCA, all flights must have their Oceanic clearance, a functioning HF radio and suitable navigation equipment. Shanwick's methods of operation are dictated by the diurnal flow of traffic across the North Atlantic, with a predominant westbound flow during the day and a predominant eastbound flow at night. To provide the best possible service for the majority of users, a system of tracks, known as the North Atlantic Organised Track System, or OTS, are designed on a daily basis for both eastbound and westbound flights. Shanwick are responsible for designing, coordinating and publishing the westbound tracks, with Gander being responsible for the eastbound OTS process. Further agreements are in place with Gander to define which levels are available for westbound and eastbound traffic depending upon time of day. Other tactical level ownership agreements also exist with Santa Maria and Reykjavik to integrate traffic leaving or joining the main flow. Shanwick procedures are explored in more depth when we look at the control of a standard westbound flight. We're going to look at the ATC procedures used during a standard westbound North Atlantic crossing. Our flight is a daily scheduled service from Dublin to Boston. Our aircraft, an Airbus A330, operated by Aer Lingus. Our call sign, Shamrock 137. The flight is due to leave Dublin in the early afternoon, but the sequence of events that will permit its passage commences many hours before this. At Prestwick, during the evening of the day before our flight, an ATC supervisor ensures the creation and publication of the westbound North Atlantic tracks for the following day. The westbound organised track structure will adhere as closely as possible to operator demand, detail of which is received at Shanwick in the form of preferred routing messages, or PRMs, every evening. Tracks will be created to take advantage of prevailing winds, avoiding headwinds in the case of the westbound design, and avoiding any significant weather systems and airspace restrictions that may apply on the day. This means that on successive days, the tracks can vary considerably in latitude. 5 or 6 westbound tracks are typically published, the northernmost of which is designated Alpha, with adjacent tracks to the south named Bravo through to Echo or Foxtrot. The track structure for the following day is normally published shortly after 2100 UTC. Westbound tracks are valid for flights crossing 30 west from 1130 to 1900 UTC. Around 3 hours ahead of the flight, Aer Lingus's operations file their flight plan. This will be based on the latest weather forecasts and the location of the published organised track system. On occasion, the planned routing might be at variance with the track structure. However, Here, the flight plan adheres to published westbound track Echo. The crew plans to enter Shanwick Oceanic Airspace at Pickle, exiting Shanwick and simultaneously entering the adjacent Gander Oceanic Control Area at 57 North, 30 West. Each day's published tracks are given a unique identity, known as a TMI or track message identification. The TMI is a sequential number based on the Julian calendar, commencing at 001 on New Year's Day and ending at 365 or 366 on New Year's Eve. As this flight occurred on the 17th of January, the TMI is 017. As part of their pre-flight actions, the crew check they've received the correct TMI number and cross-check that their flight plan coordinates exactly match those published for track Echo. These are then plotted on an oceanic airspace planning chart. Once on the flight deck, these coordinates will be entered into the aircraft navigation system.
Shanwick 137, wind 18010, clear takeoff on line 16, bye-bye.
Clear takeoff 16, goodbye, Shamrock 137.
37 out, that's where it's all the way up there. 7 fish more.
Following takeoff from Dublin, the flight is handed to Shannon Area Control for transit through Irish airspace. At this point, the aircraft is still under radar surveillance.
Shamrock 137, good afternoon, identified. Climb flight level 280.
Climb flight level 280, Shamrock 137.
All flights entering Shanwick airspace are required to request an oceanic clearance between 30 and 90 minutes from the oceanic boundary. Pilots can request oceanic clearance in a number of different ways. By data link via ACARS. At Shanwick, this is referred to as an ORCA, or Oceanic Route Clearance Authorization Request. By VHF on one of the allocated Shanwick Clearance Delivery VHF frequencies. By HF if outside of VHF range. The radio station responsible for Shanwick HF communications is located at Ballygreen on the west coast of Ireland. Ballygreen also have two VHF frequencies for communicating with aircraft that are in VHF radio range. If all else fails, pilots can make a request via the ATC agency with who they are currently in contact. This would then be relayed to Shanwick. A clearance is required for the entire transit of oceanic airspace. The request must contain boundary estimate, requested flight level and speed from entry, plus, importantly, the maximum level achievable at the boundary. If ATC imposes a restriction with which the crew cannot comply, or if a reported estimate changes by more than 2 minutes, the pilot must report to ATC as soon as possible to enable Shanwick to reassess the clearance. On the flight deck of Shamrock 137, an oceanic clearance request is sent via
Shanwick Oceanic, good afternoon, 901 Charlie.
At 1516, requesting flight level.
Speedbird 91 Charlie, Shamrock Radio, good afternoon, clearance on request, or standby 1, number 2. Well, it looks like the system I actually used to do this is broken. Should have probably tested that before I logged on. So we played a video while I try to get this working.
370, which is also the aircraft's maximum attainable level at this point. A Shanwick planning controller, who takes information via a flight data display and a graphical data display, handles requests for oceanic clearance. The displays used are the human-machine interface for the Shanwick Automated Air Traffic System, or SATS. SATS assists Shanwick controllers in tracking the thousands of flights in oceanic airspace and is one of the most sophisticated ATC data processing systems in the world. When the clearance request is received, the planning controller selects the message and this raises the flight plan for Shamrock 137. For every request, the planning controller must ensure that clearances issued maintain separation and comply with both Shanwick procedures and the requirements of receiving ATC agencies. A conflict probe is made on the flight. This means that SATS looks for conflicts that would arise should the aircraft be granted the requested clearance. In this case, American 45 is estimating Pickle 14 minutes behind Shamrock 137. The minimum time interval required between these two flights is 10 minutes. But if SATS recognises a time difference that's within 4 minutes of the prescribed minimum, a warning is displayed to the planning controller. In such cases, the planning controller will restrict flights as necessary, sometimes issuing a not before time restriction directly to a flight as part of its oceanic clearance. In this case, however, Shanwick issues a requirement only to the transferring Shannon domestic controller to ensure a specified minimum time separation or time interval is applied at the oceanic boundary. The time intervals that apply may vary depending upon the speed differential between succeeding aircraft, the cleared routing, and also environmental conditions. The Shannon controller will monitor the situation and, if necessary, instruct American 45 to adjust speed to ensure the minimum separation is not compromised. Although the probe raised a warning, there are no actual predicted conflicts should Shamrock 137 follow the requested clearance. SATS places a P on the electronic strip to indicate that the flight is provisionally cleared, and a new window appears which contains the oceanic clearance. SATS can send the clearance via data link, or for issue via either Ballygreen or via the clearance delivery officer located within the ops room at Prestwick. In this instance, the clearance request was received via data link, so the option to send by data link is automatically selected by default. The planning controller cross-checks to ensure that the SATS prediction is correct, and then issues the clearance. When the clearance is issued, SATS changes the P to an I on the electronic strip, and the clearance is sent to the aircraft. An oceanic clearance message is also sent to Shannon, advising them of the clearance. The final stage of the oceanic clearance process occurs when the clearance has been checked and acknowledged by the flight crew. In the case of a data link readback, SATS automatically removes the I from the flight data display. The crew of Shamrock 137 requested and received clearance via data link, but for demonstration purposes, a request for oceanic clearance was also made via Shanwick radio at Ballygreen. The radio operator at Ballygreen relays the request to Prestwick, and this is again displayed to the planning controller, who conducts a conflict probe on the flight. The flight is provisionally cleared on a requested clearance, but this time the method of transmission selected by default is Ballygreen. The clearance is sent to Ballygreen for issue via HF or VHF.
Shamrock 137, Shanwick radio. Shamwick oceanic clearance. Shamrock 137 to Kilo Bravo.
Europe, via track Echo. From Echo, maintain flight level 370, walk decimal 81. Feedback, please.
Shamrock 137 is cleared to Kilo Bravo Oscar Sierra via track Echo. Via Echo, flight level 370, Mach decimal 81. TMI is 017.
Mr. Echo is 1517, over.
Roger, your readback is all correct. Shamrock 137, TMI 017, and just confirm
your estimate for Pico, please.
Estimating Pico at 1517, Shamrock 137.
Roger, Shamrock 137, estimating Pico, time 1517.
Following receipt of a correct pilot readback, the radio operator returns a typed readback message which is received at the relevant Shanwick planning controller's workstation. On receipt of this message, the planner cross-checks the readback and updates the flight strip accordingly.
Alright guys, looks like the VNAS Oceanic ATC tools is not working, so I'm not going to go ahead and do Oceanic with pen and paper. I'm not that archaic. So I don't know, I might be back on, I might do another position, or I might not. But if I'm back, I'll talk to you then.